water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony, but everything changed when a meteorite fell on the Water Nation. This meteorite disrupted the balance of the world and ushered in an era of glaciations. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. Many years later, a young bender named Kaen emerged from the Fire Nation. Although Kaen is a powerful firebender, he still has much to learn to restore the world's balance. But I believe that Kaen can save the world.
Episode 10. The Power of Fire. Kaen's journey had been long, filled with battles both within and around him. But now, in the frozen wilderness, he was closer than ever to realizing his true potential as the Avatar. The cold wind whipped through the snow-covered valley as Kaen tracked the Water Nation soldiers who had taken Iara. His heart pounded, not just from the cold but from the weight of what lay ahead. This was not just a rescue mission. This was the moment he had been training for, the moment when he would finally master the fire within. As the frigid air bit into his skin, Kaen's mind flashed back to his training. His master's voice echoed in his thoughts, reminding him of the core lessons. Control, focus, balance. Fire is not just destruction. It is life. The flames within Kaen seemed to pulse with every beat of his heart, urging him forward. He had struggled for so long, wrestling with his powers, trying to control something he thought was too wild, too dangerous. But now, standing on the brink of his greatest challenge, something had changed. Kaen said in his mind, "Iara, I promised I wouldn't let anything happen to you. But it's more than that. If I can't protect you, how can I protect anyone? Have to do this, not just for you but for all of us." Ahead of him, in the distance, Kaen could see the Water Nation soldiers gathered around a makeshift camp. Iara sat bound in ice, her face calm but her eyes filled with defiance. The soldiers, oblivious to the storm brewing in Kaen's heart, were focused on their victory. But Kaen knew this would be short-lived. He had spent so long struggling to control his firebending, afraid of its power. Now, he understood that it wasn't about control, it was about balance. Fire was a part of him, just as much as the sky or the earth beneath his feet. The master in Kaen's mind said, "Kaen, fire is life, fire is destruction, creation and death. To bend fire is to bend the balance of all things." Kaen's breath was steady as he approached the camp, his hands already warming with the heat of the fire inside him. This time he wasn't afraid. His steps were slow, deliberate, as he made his way down the ridge toward the soldiers. The snow melted beneath his feet as the temperature around him began to rise. The soldiers turned, startled by the sudden shift in the air, and Kaen saw the flash of fear in their eyes. The soldier said, "Look, firebender boy, what do you think you can take us all on by yourself?" The other soldier said, "Let's see what you're made of." Kaen's face remained calm, his eyes fixed on Iara. With a single fluid motion, he raised his hand, and a wall of fire erupted between the soldiers and Iara, cutting them off from their captive. The flames danced in Kaen's eyes, flickering like the resolve burning inside him. The soldiers hesitated, and in that moment Kaen struck. He spun, his arms moving with grace and precision, sending blasts of fire toward the soldiers. They scrambled to defend themselves, but Kaen's power was overwhelming. Kaen said, "I'm not just a firebender. I am the Avatar." One by one, the soldiers fell back, their waterbending no match for the intensity of Kaen's fire. The flames circled him like a protective shield, and in the heat of battle, Kaen realized something. This wasn't just about bending fire. This was about bending life itself, about restoring the balance that had been broken. As the last of the soldiers retreated, Kaen rushed to Iara, melting the ice that bound her wrists. She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and surprise, her voice soft but filled with admiration. You did it, Kaen. You controlled it," Iara said softly. "I couldn't have done it without you," Kaen said, smiling and out of breath. But just as Kaen helped Iara to her feet, the air around them grew colder. From the shadows emerged a figure, cloaked in darkness, watching them with unblinking eyes. Kaen felt the familiar chill of fear crawl up his spine. This was no ordinary enemy. As the figure stepped forward, Kaen braced himself, his hand instinctively reaching for the warmth of the fire within him. the mysterious figure whispered. You are only just beginning to understand your power, Avatar. But true balance will be more difficult to achieve than you think. The figure's voice sent a shiver through Kaen, but he stood his ground, flames flickering at his fingertips. Iara stepped beside him, her eyes narrowing as she prepared for what was to come. They weren't alone anymore. There were darker forces at play, and Kaen knew this was only the beginning. This is it. I have found my power, but now I must find balance. The world depends on it, Kaen said. With Iara at his side, Kaen took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the shadowy figure. The fire inside him burned bright, ready for the challenges ahead. The battle had been won, but the war for balance had only just begun. Together, they stepped forward into the unknown, determined to face whatever darkness lay ahead. To be continued.